Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The top Democrat and Republican on the Senate Intelligence Committee have made a joint request for lawmakers to be allowed to see the classified documents seized last week by the FBI during its raid of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Democrat Mark Warner and Republican Marco Rubio made the request Sunday to the Justice Department and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. On Friday, the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida unsealed and released the search warrant for the raid. The warrant revealed Trump is being investigated for 3 federal crimes: violating the Espionage Act, obstruction of justice, and criminal handling of government records. The FBI reportedly seized 11 sets of classified documents during its search, including papers marked Top Secret SCI, which stands for Sensitive Compartmented Information, one of the highest levels of classification. Last week, The Washington Post reported part of the FBI search focused on classified documents related to nuclear weapons. According to the New York Times, an attorney for Trump had signed a statement in June telling the Justice Department all classified material had been returned. But investigators later learned that wasn't true. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi addressed the raid on Friday.
There are laws against the improper handling of this material. There are laws against that, and we have to recognize that this information, as it is coming across, and we'll know more later, is highly classified, well above top secret. It is again higher than top secret. It's top secret SCI. It is. It's about our national security, as we are told, and we'll see.
Donald Trump's response to the raid has shifted day by day. He's called the probe a hoax. He's claimed to have declassified all the documents at Mar-a-Lago, and he's demanded the FBI return some documents, claiming they're protected by attorney-client and executive privilege. Fallout from the FBI raid is continuing to grow across the country as Republican lawmakers denounce the FBI, with Florida Senator Rick Scott comparing the agency to the Gestapo in Nazi Germany. FBI is reportedly investigating a, quote, unprecedented number of threats against FBI agents over the past week. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security have also issued a joint intelligence bulletin warning of violent threats against federal agents, court officials, and government facilities. We'll have more on this story after headlines. Renowned Indian-British novelist Salman Rushdie is in critical condition and faces a long road to recovery after surviving an assassination attempt Friday morning in western New York. Rushdie was being introduced to the audience at a literary event at the Chautauqua Institution when a man wielding a knife climbed on stage and began stabbing him. The attack left Rushdie hospitalized with severed nerves in one arm, a punctured liver, and other injuries that left him on a ventilator overnight Friday. Rushdie's agent, Andrew Wiley, says he's likely to lose one eye as a result of the assault. 24-year-old Hadi Matar of New Jersey was restrained by audience members and later arrested. He was arraigned Saturday, where he pleaded not guilty to charges of attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon. Prosecutors have not yet established a motive for the attack. Salman Rushdie is one of the most highly acclaimed writers in the world today. He was forced into hiding and lived underground for many years after the late Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran issued a fatwa in 1989 calling on Muslims to assassinate Salman Rushdie over his book, The Satanic Verses. The novel portrays the Quran in an unconventional light and models one of its main characters on the Muslim prophet Muhammad. The fatwa was finally lifted in 1998 by Iran. New York Governor Kathy Hochul spoke Sunday from the Chautauqua Institution.
And those who are motivated to violence because of calls from foreign leaders, even domestic leaders, calls for violence cannot be tolerated. And so We're going to continue. And I want it out there that a man with a knife cannot silence a man with a pen.
President Biden is set to sign a sweeping $739 billion bill to address the climate crisis, reduce drug costs, and establish a 15% minimum tax for large corporations. On Friday, the House passed the Inflation Reduction Act on a party-line vote of 220 to 207. No Republicans supported the legislation. The White House released a video of Biden praising the bill.
The American people are going to see lower prescription drug prices, lower health care costs, and lower energy costs. And big corporations are finally going to start to pay their fair share. Those that are paying $0 in federal income tax will now have to pay a minimum tax. And America is going to take the most aggressive action we've ever taken in confronting the climate crisis and strengthening the energy security of America.
Despite Biden's high praise, many climate groups criticized the package for including major handouts to the fossil fuel industry, which were added to win the support of conservative Democratic West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who's the largest recipient of fossil fuel industry donations in Congress. The Center for Biological Diversity described the bill as a climate suicide pact. Idaho's Supreme Court has signed off on a law outlawing nearly all forms of abortion. On Friday, justices rejected lawsuits filed by abortion care providers who sought to stop Idaho's so-called trigger law from taking effect later this month. The new law criminalizes abortions just 6 weeks into a pregnancy and makes it a felony to perform an abortion with limited exceptions for cases of rape, incest, or medical emergency. Idaho's abortion ban still faces a legal challenge from the Department of Justice in a federal court. Meanwhile, the Kansas Secretary of State has signed off on a hand recount of ballots cast on August 2nd, when voters overwhelmingly rejected a referendum that would have removed reproductive rights from the Kansas Constitution. The recount was requested by a private citizen who has spread baseless conspiracy theories about the 2020 election. It'll be paid for by anti-abortion activists. The recount is unlikely to change the outcome of the election, which saw Kansans affirm abortion rights by a 165,000-vote margin. China's warning the United States is, quote, playing with fire on the Taiwan question, unquote, after another U.S. congressional delegation made an unannounced trip Sunday to Taiwan to meet with the Taiwanese president. Democratic Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts is leading the delegation, which comes less than 2 weeks after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi became the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit Taiwan in a quarter-century. Meanwhile, former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger is warning about U.S. policy on Taiwan and Ukraine. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Kissinger said, quote, "We are at the edge of war with Russia and China on issues which we partly created without any concept of how this is going to end or what it's supposed to lead to," Kissinger said. In Kabul, Afghanistan, members of the Taliban fired warning shots into the air and used rifle butts Saturday to beat women protesters outside the headquarters of Afghanistan's education ministry. The women had been chanting bread, work, and freedom. Protesters were demanding the Taliban end its ban on girls attending classes beyond the 6th grade, as well as a ban on women holding most government jobs or traveling alone. 1 year ago today, the Taliban took power of Afghanistan. According to the United Nations, 95% of Afghans are going hungry in a food crisis exacerbated by the Biden administration's decision to freeze the Afghan central bank's assets. This is Dr. Mohammed Ashraf speaking from the packed malnutrition ward at a children's hospital in Kabul.
It is a fact that misery and poverty is increasing in our country day by day. The higher the poverty rates, the more malnutrition cases there are. I urge the international community and other assisting organizations to help the poor people, especially those suffering from this disease, malnutrition.
Israeli forces have shot dead a 21-year-old Palestinian man during a raid on his home earlier today in occupied East Jerusalem. According to Palestinian officials, Mohammed Ibrahim Sham was shot in the head at point-blank range. In related news, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, has expressed alarm over the number of Palestinian children killed recently by Israel. Over the past 10 days, Israeli forces have killed 19 Palestinian children, 17 in Gaza, and 2 in the occupied West Bank. In a statement, Michelle Bachelet said, quote, "Inflicting hurt on any child during the course of conflict is deeply disturbing. The killing and maiming of so many children this year is unconscionable," she said. In northeastern Spain, authorities ordered 1,500 people in 8 villages to evacuate their homes after a large wildfire exploded in size overnight Saturday. It's Spain's 43rd large wildfire of the year. This comes as firefighters from across Europe are battling huge fires in France, where recent rains have helped bring some blazes under control. The European Forest Fire Information System reports a record pace of wildfires this year, with over 1.6 million acres burned. Much of Europe has faced record heat this summer, with meteorologists warning the climate crisis could soon bring about the continent's worst drought in more than 500 years. Colombia's new president, Gustavo Petro, has named new commanders to head Colombia's military and police as part of a push to bring peace to the country. Petro, who is Colombia's first-ever leftist leader, said he picked commanders who had never been accused of human rights violations.
Nueva cúpula que va a dirigir la Fuerza Pública de Colombia.
The new commanders that will lead Colombia's public forces are aligned with the human security politics goals we promised and that we want to turn into a reality and evaluate in due time, to know about its effectiveness, to guarantee peace, to guarantee a decrease in violence and crime, to guarantee a substantial respect towards human rights and citizens' freedoms, as every democracy should.
In other developments in Colombia, President Petro has taken steps to resume peace talks in Cuba with the ELN, Colombia's largest remaining guerrilla group. Meanwhile, Colombia's new vice president, Francia Marquez, was symbolically sworn in by indigenous and Afro-Colombian leaders in her hometown of Suarez on Saturday. Marquez is Colombia's first Afro-Colombian vice president.
Our commitment with peace is our most important commitment. An ethnic chapter was created for the indigenous people and Afro-Colombians in the peace treaty signed by the government. I will be the person in charge of ensuring the ethnic chapter for peace will advance.
And Sunday marked the 10th anniversary of the disappearance of Austin Tice, a freelance journalist and former U.S. Marine who was abducted in Syria August 15, 2012. At the time, he was working as a freelance journalist covering Syria's civil war. The McClatchy News Service recently reported secret negotiations have been taking place between the U.S. and Syrian governments over his possible release. On Sunday, Austin Tice's family spoke at the National Press Club in Washington. This is his sister, Megan Tice.
You know, just reflecting on these last 10 years, it's amazing to think. I mean, I have 2 children now that have never met my brother, and just the hole is felt so deeply, and we're so ready for him to come home.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. When we come back, we look at the FBI's search warrant revealing former President Donald Trump is under investigation for violating the Espionage Act. Stay with us.